Hello everybody, welcome back to another weather video. Today we'll be taking a look across the eastern part of the US as two potential winter storms could affect the region, one during the week and one into the weekend. On the screen right now, if you look in the Ohio Valley region as of 1 p.m. Eastern time, you do have this little system cutting across, making its way towards the northeast. Believe it or not, some parts of the Ohio Valley got 6 inches of snow, while they only forecasted to get 1 to 2, 3 maximum. Winter storms lately have loved to overperform. Like these little tiny storms love to overperform. And once again, it did. Now, if we move on a couple hours, you can see it pretty much disintegrates. You have some rain showers, but it's mostly lake effect coming off the lakes. But if we go fast forward a little bit more, you can see it reforms off the coast in the Gulf of Maine, eventually strengthens a little bit and makes connections with this cold air, making some snow in parts of most eastern part of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and western parts of Maine. This could give a quick 1 to 3, maybe 4 to 5 inches depending on elevation. And that's pretty much it as it strengthens and makes its way into Canada. But if you look at the bottom of the screen towards Texas, you can see another chance a rise, dissipates, and then reforms off the coast again into the Gulf of Maine and into Nova Scotia. Now, this is our first threat. At least in the GFS point, it has been backing off this idea, but it still shows a little bit of snow in New Hampshire, Vermont, and central New York. As it makes its way towards the Gulf of Maine, you can see it starts to strengthen a little bit, throw back more precip and mix with the cold air, causing more snow to form. But it really doesn't get its act together until it's in the Gulf of Maine, and even by that point, it's not really that strong. Now, if you want to continue into the weekend storm, you can see that the GFS has, believe it or not, snow in the North Carolina, Virginia region due to this very cold air coming down due to our extremely negative EPO. I'll explain to you what an EPO is in a little bit. But due to this, you have cold air mixing in with the storm, causing snow to happen in the deep south. No, not deep south, the southeast here. But the GFS keeps it flat and weak and just takes it off the coast and keeps it weak until you have your cold air fully come in, swing in, and this is really, really cold air. It stretches all the way back from Washington State all the way up into Maine. It stretches all the way down into central Texas. This, for this time of year, is extremely cold air. And if you want to take a look at the 850 millibar temp, you can see it is really, really cold air coming down into the part of the US due to our extremely negative EPO. This is the brand new European run that just came out at 1:35 Eastern time, so we'll look at this together. I have not looked at it yet. You can see our storm in the Ohio Valley regions weakens and then reforms off the coast of Maine and goes into Canada as a 995 low, which is actually pretty decent for what the compared to the GFS was showing. If we want to switch back to the GFS real quick, it has it as a 102, then 998. The European is a little bit stronger with the system. And then you have our system for midweek around Wednesday, Thursday timeframe down by Louisiana. And then believe it or not, it actually gives a nice little storm. Wow, I'm actually surprised. I was not expecting that. Let me zoom in a little bit on the northeast here. But yeah, it actually gives a nice, decent storm. It tracks it over Delaware, and anywhere from 42 degrees north and up, it has it all snow. And it's actually pretty heavy snow, believe it or not. And then it strengthens into the Gulf of Maine. This would actually be a great snowstorm for almost all of Maine except the coastal areas. And yeah, then you have lake effect snow after that for days, it looks like Friday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And if we want to pull up the snow maps for this system for this week and next week, according to the European, I'll bring up the GFS too, the snow totals at least, it brings northern Maine 7-8 inches. That could happen. I think it's a little overdone. And then this system for this week, next week, brings a swath of 6 inches plus in this region. Now, take off 7 inches in this red area because you already had that first storm. And actually, I'll go by 24-hour snowfall. But you can see here, it gives a nice swath of 6 inches plus anywhere in this region. That stretches almost all the way into western New York, into all the way up into Maine. Actually gives 13. Okay, that's overdone. We'll switch to the GFS because that was way overdone in Maine. So if we want to continue with the GFS, it has, believe it or not, almost 10 inches in northern Maine. I don't think you'll get 10 inches. I think you'll get 3 to 5 inches of snow because you're going from rain to snow, which cuts totals right away because your streets are wet, everything is wet, and it's going to be harder to make that street cold enough to start piling on snow. So 3 to 5 is a good range. And then for this storm for Wednesday into Thursday, you can see it's very little, like, unless you're in New Hampshire and Vermont and Maine. There's a big swath of 1 to 3 though, and then a pocket of 5 plus in New Hampshire. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then you have, what was that? This is your Carolina storm. If you want to believe it, it brings 5 plus, but I doubt that storm happens. This is WPC. It pretty much gives you a percentage chance of how much snow. Yeah, I'll read it right here. Probability of 0.25 inch of liquid equivalent of snow. So this is your percentage of probably getting an inch or two for Wednesday. As of right now, this is your 25, well, 10 to 30% chance anywhere in this green region. This over here is all lake effect, all by Michigan and Wisconsin. And then if you want to move on into Thursday, you can see a slight uptick into 30 to 50% into central Maine, back into Vermont and New Hampshire. This this is a pretty good area where I think most confident in where you can see the most accumulating snow. And again, once again, back on the Lake Erie, Lake Ontario side, you can see that you also have lake effect again. Friday, more lake effect, and Saturday, even still around lake effect. And if we want to go to the GFS ensembles to get a good depiction of if there really is a chance of snow for the weekend, this over here, this already happened. This is your system that just dropped 6 inches in part of the Ohio Valley. I still can't believe it dropped 6 inches. But moving on, you can see northern Maine, a pretty good agreement that you could get 4, 5 inches. A very widespread 1 to 3 in Maine, but definitely a little bit more than I expected. But again, you got to cut your totals down a little bit because it goes from rain to snow. And then our midweek storm, you could see into the weekend. I'll extend this to Saturday. You can see that you do have a lot of lake effect here. Lake effect, lake effect, lake effect, lake effect, and lake effect here. That is all lake effect, and this is the storm that's gonna run up into the northeast. It actually gives 1 to 3 pocket of 3 to 5 inches of Arkansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma, believe it or not, according to the GFS ensembles, which is a slight uptick from last run, believe it or not. And yeah, and then you have your 1 to 3 in light blue that stretches anywhere from here. So I think there is pretty good model agreement that there could be a storm running or two running around. And if we want to look at the European, even though it was from the 60, you can see it also has your lake effect in those areas I circled. But obviously, you don't have your 1 to 3, 3 to 5 inch plus range from Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, like you did with the GFS. There's definitely still a lot of uncertainty with this track. It is almost 8 days out, depending on what storm you look at. The first storm that's going to affect Maine, I think it's almost a lock that Maine is going to see decent accumulating snow, but everywhere else, we're going to have to play the waiting game because I'm very inconsistent with the models so far. The GFS doesn't really have it. The European definitely has it with that Wednesday, Thursday storm I'm talking about. The GFS doesn't have it. The GFS, the European definitely does. The Canadian, I believe, has it. I will pull up the Canadian real quick just to make sure. And it does have it. It's like a mix in between the GFS and European. And if you want to bring up snow totals just for fun, it gives 1 to 3 to 5 inches. So yeah, it's definitely a mix in between the GFS and European. Now, you may be asking, what is causing this cold outbreak to occur and such an intensity wise? This is because our EPO, East Pacific Oscillation, is taking a nosedive completely negative. It's so negative that it's off the charts according to the GFS, and I believe the European also takes it off the charts. Both of them take it off the chart. You may be asking, so what? It's off the chart. What does that mean? If it's negative, which we have right now, it's gonna form a ridge and force the Arctic air to go displace and go down into North America. And if it's so intensely negative, it keeps it there, locks it in for a long period of time, and that is what we're going to be experiencing according to the GFS and European. Notice how it does tick up at the end. This is a relaxation period. I think will right around Thanksgiving, if not before Thanksgiving, will be a relaxation period. So that means there's going to be a break in the cold air. Everything might warm up a little bit, but after that, it looks like it's going to get cold again. But that's also way out there. That's 3 to 4 weeks out there. And if it were to go positive, like both the European and GFS are eventually going to show, you would have mild conditions across the country. Your cold air is locked up in the Arctic, and you also have moisture streaming into the Pacific coast. Finally, I just want to go over the small amount of watches and advisories that we have up right now. In the south, we have freeze watches and warnings. The warnings are in the dark blue, purplish color, and then the watches are in this light blue. You also have winter weather advisories up for Michigan, the UP of Michigan, and one single winter storm warning for Wisconsin. That's for lake effect. All three of these. And then you also have some winter weather advisories and warnings in Alaska. And that's pretty much it. The rest of the country is pretty calm. And that's before these storms come and eventually affect the eastern part of the U.S. and even into the central part of the U.S. Thank you guys all for watching. I will update you as this time comes closer with these winter storms and we get new information. I hope everyone has a great